Hey guys, Dave Tebow here. In this tutorial today, I'm going to be taking you through my basic workflow for editing wildlife shots in Adobe Photoshop 2020. You got yourself your first DSLR and a decent zoom lens, you're taking some wildlife shots of the birds and the bees, and they're coming out kind of boring. Do not despair. With this pretty basic workflow, you'll be able to take your shots from something like this to something like this. And if you guys are curious about the lens I use or the settings for the camera, you can find that in the description down below. Alright guys, step one is I like to crop my image if it's necessary. I don't want a lot of wasted space in the image, and I want to try to fill the frame with my subject as much as possible. So let's start by unlocking the layer over here. We'll go to the crop tool, hit that up here. Let's bring it in on the right over here. There's nothing interesting going on. I'm going to leave those branches in the photo because it helps to frame the subject nicely. So let's bring down the top a bit. Bring up the bottom as well. Bring it on the left just a bit. Let's get the bee right in the crosshairs of the grid lines on the bottom right there. And that should be good, and let's press with the check mark up here. Alright, next I want to enhance the color of the image, make it a little bit more vibrant. So let's add a vibrance layer. We'll hit this little upside down triangle button up here. I got two options, vibrance or saturation. I don't typically mess around too much with saturation. It can be a little aggressive. So that's overkill there. It makes the image look a little unnatural. Might increase that just a bit. I can crank up the vibrance quite a bit here. That looks pretty good. And by hitting this little eye here, this will make the layer visible or invisible. It gives you a nice before and after. That looks a lot better. Next thing I want to do is check for any noise in the image. So let's right click and zoom in to 200%. A little bit of noise here, nothing too dramatic. So in order to fix this, we're going to merge these layers over here into a new layer by hitting Command, Option, Shift, and E on a Mac, or Shift, Window, Alt, and E on a PC. Next thing we want to do is go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. The detail area is where you're going to find your noise reduction adjustment. So I usually crank this up to maybe about 20 or so, and then let's press OK. Next thing I want to do is bring out some of the detail in the bee. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to again create another layer. We're going to hit Command, Option, Shift, and E on a Mac, or Shift, Window, Alt, and E on a PC. And again, we're going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And let's close down that detail section. We're going to open up Basic. And I want to increase texture quite a bit here. And let's turn up the clarity a little bit as well. And press OK. Now that adjustment affected the entire image, and all we want to affect is the bee. So we're going to come down here and we're going to click this little button down here and we're going to add a layer mask. Now the most important thing to remember with layer masks is that white means visible, black means invisible. So with this layer mask fully white, what that means is that the adjustments we made with this layer are affecting the entire image. So with this layer mask selected, we're going to hit Command I on a Mac or Window I on a PC. Now that this is black, what that means is that the adjustments in this layer are completely invisible. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come over to this box and we're going to make sure that white is in the front. If not, you can just click in here and adjust the color if you need to. Next, we're going to grab a paintbrush. Adjust the size of the brush if you need to up here. And with the layer mask selected and white as your color, we're just going to paint over the bee. As you can see, the texture and clarity adjustments that we made are starting to come through on just the bee, which is exactly what we want. Should be good there. Now if we toggle our visibility button here, you can see the difference here in the bee. Helps them to stand out a little bit more against the background. Next thing I want to do is add a little mood and contrast to the image. We're going to do that with a simple curves layer. So let's hit this curves button up here. And all we're going to do here is a simple S curve. We'll grab the line right about here and pull it up. And then we'll grab it again right about here and pull it down a bit. That should do it there. That looks a lot better. Next thing I want to do is a photo filter. So personally, I prefer my images a little bit cooler, so I like to use cooling filter 80. The effect there is a little bit strong, so I'm going to take the opacity here, bring it down to maybe 75%. Yeah, it looks good there. I want to take a step back for a second here now and just show you something on this curves layer. If I double click in here, if you're messing around with this curves layer, sometimes if you go overboard, it can get kind of screwed up. If you want to reset it back to a straight line, just hit this circular arrow here, and that'll reset it, get it back to where it was. And also, if you're working with a layer and you don't like how it looks, you just want to get rid of it, just grab it and hold it down and just drag it and drop it in the trash can down here in the bottom right, and that'll get rid of it. Next thing I want to do is add a vignette to the image. That'll help make the subject stand out even more against the background. Now you can do this in Camera Raw or in Lightroom, and it's pretty simple, but I actually like to do this manually using a curves layer. So let's add a curves layer. We're going to pull this down a bit and darken the image. As you can see, that's affecting the whole image, which is not what we want. So we're going to fix that using layer masks. Now with this white mask selected, we're going to hit Command and I on a Mac or Window and I on a PC. That's going to invert the mask to black and make the whole layer invisible. So we're going to make sure next that white is our front color over here in this box. And we're going to grab a paintbrush. And we'll make sure that the layer mask is selected here. We're just going to paint around the edges. That way that the darkening effect of the curves only affects the areas that we're painting white. This gives you full control over your vignette. Looks pretty good there. Now what we're going to do next is duplicate this layer. So we're going to hit Command and J on a Mac or Window and J on a PC. And with the mask selected, we're going to hit Command and I on a Mac or Window and I on a PC, and that's going to invert the mask. So what we're going to do next here is double click on this duplicated curves layer, and you can see that it's still pulled down and darkened like the layer that we just copied. So we can hit the reset button here. And this one we're going to actually brighten a little bit. Not too much, don't go overboard with the brightening. So now what we've got here is one curves layer that brightens the subject of the image, and one curves layer that darkens the periphery of the image. What we're going to do next here is we're going to hold down Shift, hit this layer below it, right click, and we're going to hit Group from Layers. And we're going to name this Vignette. With our before and after, you can see we get a nice vignette there. But it's not too dramatic, so don't go overboard with this. Alright guys, the last thing I want to mention is I really recommend you guys get Raya Pro. It's a plug-in for Photoshop that goes for maybe around 50 bucks or so. It's not required to make great photos, but it can really take your editing to the next level. And Raya Pro is all these little icons over here, and the one I want to use right now is this FF button. So for photos that have a lot of green in them, nature shots and things like that, I'm going to hit this magic green lands button here. Press OK. As you can see, that's overkill. Doesn't look that great at all. But we're going to touch this up a bit. If I hit this little right arrow here, it's going to break this open and it's going to show me all the little adjustments that went into this magic green landscape edit. You see there's a vignette in here. And remember, we already did a vignette, so I'm going to make that invisible. Let's try this boost greens here. That effect doesn't really do much for us, so I'm going to get rid of that. Brights boost, I think I'm going to get rid of that because you can see these bright areas in the photo. They're a little bit strong and blown out. So let's make that invisible. It's better. We've got an Orton effect here, which gives the photo kind of a dreamy look. Personally, I think that's a little bit strong, so let's see what we can do with that. Let's turn down the opacity a bit here. Down a little bit more. I don't want to take any detail away from the bee. That's okay there. I think that's good. I think we'll close this back up. And the effect, I think, is still too strong overall. So with Magic Green Landscape selected, I'm going to bring down the opacity on this layer a bit. Still a little too strong, I think. That looks pretty good, I think. Alright guys, that just about does it. If you learned some useful tips today and you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. If you'd like to see more in the future, please subscribe to my channel. Until then, thank you for watching.